Today we're gonna be going from all of this to this on Sunday Gun Day. What's going on, everyone? Back with another episode of Stuff and Things, and today I'm going to be setting up a brand new EDC gun. I've got literally every part that I need here, from the sights to an optic to a holster to a light. I've got every little screw and piece and part that I need. I got all the tools down here on the ground next to me, and I'm just gonna put this thing together from start to finish to show you guys how I like to set up guns like this. Now, I'll be sure to leave links to everything that I possibly can in the description down below. I'll try to put the prices of where I got them from. I'll also leave links to some of the tools that I'm gonna be using because they're going to be extremely helpful, especially if you want to do something like this yourself. And I know a lot of people are probably already asking, why are you setting up a new gun? Well, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you guys will know how much I love this gun right here. This is my Gen 5 Glock 17 MOS FS. I've got the Trijicon RMR RM09 with a 1 MOA dot, the Surefire X300, a Mariglow suppressor height sights. This is a gun that I shoot a lot. I take it to a bunch of training events. I have it in a drop-leg holster for the most part. And overall, it's just a pistol that I really enjoy shooting. Now, the only downside to this is that I can't really carry it because of the size. I do actually have an appendix rig for this from my friends at QBO Tactical, which we will get into here in a second. And I have actually carried this gun, appendix, just to kind of see how it would go. And I did it for about a month, and then I was like, nah, I'm over that. Definitely not doing that anymore. So then I moved on to the 43X. Now that's out getting some work done. I carried the Archon Type B for a little while. I shot that in a bunch of different courses. But then most recently, I always come back to this gun, and lately I've been carrying a completely bone stock Gen 519. So now I'll set this to the side. I will move all of this stuff on the table, and we'll start from the ground up with the pistol that I chose to go with. So starting with the base gun that I went with, I of course went with a Glock 19 again. This one happens to be the MOS 19 with front serrations and of course the plate where I can put an RMR. Now I decided to go this way because one of the things that I like about that 17 MOS so much is that it is a completely stock gun, and for the most part this is going to be completely stock. I'm leaving the trigger stock, all of the internal stock. The only things that I'm really doing are putting an RMR and some sights on here, so if at any time I want to, I can take this thing back to being completely stock as you see it right here. Now, if you don't own a Glock MOS, what you get is, of course, 3 magazines with the orange followers. Those are new on the Gen 5s. You get the typical lock and cleaning brush stuff like that, and then some back straps. You also get these MOS adapter plates, and I will be using one of these here for the RMR, so I'll have to figure out which one we're going with there. But the first thing that I want to do is, of course, make sure the gun is clear, which it is. I just picked it up at the FFL. And now I'm going to take these and install a different back strap. Now I tend to go back and forth between these a lot. I'm either running my guns just like this without a beaver tail, or I will put the medium beaver tail on here. Just like my 17, I am running that beaver tail, as you can see here. I do like this because the grip feels better in my hands. I have relatively large size hands, and when you're shooting a gun like this, you can very easily get slide bite if you are really choking up on the grip there. So if you've never done this before, this little thing on here is a tool. You can simply push that rear pin out there, make sure you do not lose that. Also on this tool is another pin which you will use to install after you put the larger back strap on. Starting from the bottom, you push it up and make sure it is seated under there. Kind of snap it into place. Make sure everything lines up and I can see through that hole. I will insert the new pin, and I'm also going to use this to push it in because it can be tricky sometimes. Try to center this thing up as best as possible. That way when you're looking at it from the back there, you don't have any pin poking out, and there we go. Now we got the medium beaver tail back strap installed. Put the rest of these back straps back into this little tool thing here and put them in the box where they will live for the rest of forever. Now I do have these MOS adapter plates right here, but I am going to put them to the side for now because the first thing I want to do is install these Mariglow sights. These are the same exact sights that I do have on my 17, and I will leave a link for these in the description down below. For anyone who wants to know, these are GL611s. It is a completely blacked out rear and then a sort of greenish yellow front sight post with some tritium in there. Now the first thing I'm gonna do is take this thing down, remove the spring, remove the barrel. I have a front sight tool right here. I'll bring you guys in a little bit closer. Now this is a pain to do sometimes, but you just wanna put that tool right on the end there and get this front sight off. A lot of times when they're coming from Glock, they're not super tight from the factory, and this one is no exception to that. Got that screw out, I'll set it to the side and pop this front sight post off. These little sight posts are really hard to see, but they are oblong. That way when you put the new sight in place, you will be able to line it up pretty easily. Now I don't know why I keep all of these stock sights. I have a whole bag of them somewhere, but I will set that to the side and keep it for later. Now I'm gonna pull out a rear sight pusher. I actually bought this thing on Amazon, and as I'm filming this right now, it is the lowest it's ever been. This thing is like 40, 45 bucks or something like that, and it is super, super convenient to have. The way it works is pretty straightforward. I will put the slide in here. There are a few adjustments to get this thing in place where you need it to be. The reason I'm doing this first is because if I put the RMR on here, it will not fit in there, and then it will be really hard to kind of slide this thing off. I'll turn the sides in here, make sure everything is nice and snug. I'll also raise this up. I know this is kind of difficult to see what I'm doing right here, but I'll show you what it should look like in a second. All right, here we go. The slide is now in this little jig. Everything is nice and secure, both on the sides. There is some little polymer there to keep it from scratching the slide. So there really is no metal on metal here. And then of course I have the rear dovetail sight positioned just in the tip of these jaws. Now if I hold this steady and spin it in either direction, that rear sight comes off nice and easily. Now while I have this in here, I'm going to throw the rear sight on. Again, this is a tiny piece here, but I'm going to make sure I orient it in the right direction. That back larger ledge is going to be towards the back of the gun. Now I'm lining it up in this dovetail just to get it started, and then I will slowly crank it back the opposite direction. Now this part really turns into an eyeball game. Sometimes you can actually mark the center of this. There are some marks on the top here so you can see where you actually started from. So I'm gonna try to put it back to about the exact same spot if possible. This is when having this thing mounted to a desk or a table would definitely come in handy. Now I could sit here and fine tune this all day, but I think that is looking pretty good. So I will unscrew all of this and pull the slide out. I'd say that looks pretty good to me. It's so hard to tell. Now it's time for the front sight post. It does help to use a little bit of Loctite when you do this, preferably blue. I'm going all out and I'm using red right now. So I really want to make sure I'm careful when I do this. I'm going to slip the front sight post in. I'll just balance the slide upside down there so I can put a tiny, tiny little bit of this thread locker on here. That should be plenty. I'm gonna place this screw in the tool. My fingers are too fat to do stuff like this. I should be paying someone to do this. Now I'm gonna hold the screw in place. There's no way that I'm gonna be able to film this. There you guys go. Screw that into place. There is a tiny little bit of wiggle room in these sights, so you wanna make sure everything is seated and lined up as best as you can. And hold it center and snug it up just one more time. I think that is about it for those Ameriglow sights. All right, now moving on to the RMR. This is a Type 2 RM09, so it is a 1 MOA dot. Here I have the MOS adapter plates. I forget exactly which one is the one for an RMR. Let me pop these open quick. I believe it is number 2. Now what I'm gonna do first is remove these torque screws on top. Now you want to go easy when removing these. They are very easy to strip, and learn from my experience, it's not fun. So if you do strip these, you're going to have a bad time. I'll remove that plate and set it to the side. Now I'm actually gonna take a tiny bit of oil here and put a dab on the top. There is some new oil on here since the gun is brand new, but it's good to get this thing coated because once you put this on, there is a very good chance that you will not take it off. And this will prevent any rusting or any kind of fitment issues. Kind of just keeps everything nice and neat. I'll also put a tiny little bit on the back of this plate here before I put it on the top. Line up the holes and drop that into place. Now a good way to check the fitment of your RMR is to first take it out of the box, throw the battery in it, and then actually set it on this plate. Now you have to be careful about what screws you use here, so I actually have one of these sealing plates and the screws directly from Trijicon. I will of course make sure I leave a link for these in the description down below. Now what I'm gonna do is remove this plate. I'm gonna keep the screws in the bag just for now. Put a tiny bit of oil on this thing. Again, just to make sure the seal is a little bit better. Make sure that there's no rust getting in here. I'll put the sealing plate on the number 2 adapter. Put the RMR on top of that. And then I will take these included screws. These are the screws that came with the plate, and then put them in like that. I'm gonna pick everything up, and when I flip this over while holding the screws in place, you can see that there is no chance that they will poke out of the bottom there. If you have the wrong screws, these will be too long, and then you could twist them into the actual part of your slide here and cause some damage. So don't do that. Make sure that there is enough thread in there to kind of bring the screws all the way in and tighten this thing up. Now I will take the RMR, those screws, and that plate, set them aside. Take this number 2 plate, place it back on here. Now you will notice that the stock plate that this thing comes with, which is just like the top portion of the slide, it's a little bit thicker than this plate, so you want to make sure that you do not use those screws here. You want to use the screws that are included in this pack here. They give you a few of them, and now they're just falling all over the place. So these are the correct screws. I'll put these in. They already have some blue Loctite on there. You could add some more if you wanted to, make this thing a little bit extra secure. Then I'll simply tighten these down. Let me move some of this stuff out of the way so you guys can see a little better. Now again, I'm not getting too wicked with this. I'm really only using the small part of the bar here for tension. I'll just do it about finger and thumb tight, and then that Loctite in there should hopefully keep these things in place for as much as I'm gonna shoot this. Once that plate is nice and snug, the serrations should obviously line up across there. I will place the sealing plate and RMR back on here. This is a different Torx wrench now. Tighten these down. Again, these have Loctite on them. You also want to make sure that your battery is installed the right way. There you guys can sort of see that the dot is definitely on there. So I will tighten this thing down. Again, I'm not going crazy overboard on this tightness because I do not want to strip those. The Loctite should hold them in place. And there you have it. So now I'm gonna throw this thing back together. I could add a little bit more oil if you wanted to. I typically don't oil brand new guns, especially one like this, which is kind of dripping with oil already. It's probably the most well lubricated Glock that I've ever had right out of the box. So there we have a Glock 19 MOS, front serrations, Trijicon RMR, and suppressor height sights. Now, if you watch my recent mail time video, you guys will know that I've kind of been on the fence if I wanted to go with the XC1 to match the X300 on my 17, or if I wanted to go back to the APLC. I've had great luck with this light and I want to test it even more, so I'm gonna put this light on for now, and I think this will live on it for a while, and I'll talk about it more in an upcoming video, probably in an upcoming EDC update actually. So we got the brand new APLC out of the box. I don't have a screwdriver with me. This should do. Remove this, make sure the battery is in there. Make sure this thing is all the way tight. Test the function, it's looking good. Try to get this thing lined up on the front rail. Screw through. Definitely not going crazy tight with this because this is polymer on polymer. You really don't need to crank it down all that much. Nice, snug, and secure fit. And that's pretty much it. I do have a new QVO more discreet because I believe I gave my last one away to one of you out there. So there we go, brand new. Nice and secure fit. There is perfect clearance on those suppressor height sights, and there we go. Now I got a new carry gun. It's like a mini scaled down version of my 17, which I already really enjoy shooting, so chances are I should be able to pick this thing up and be proficient with it right from the start. Now this video wouldn't be complete unless I actually shot this gun, so one thing that I want to do before I take it out to the range is actually make sure this thing is somewhat zeroed. So here I've got a laser ammo target. I've done a video on this thing in the past. I also have their laser cartridge. Again, I'll make sure this gun is clear. 9mm cap going on. I got a fresh battery in there as well. Drop this in the chamber, close it up, and we're on. Now looking at this dot already, it actually looks like it is co-witnessing pretty well. Now this is of course really hard to show on camera, but you can sort of see that dot sitting right on top of that front sight post. Now I do this basically just standing right around here, so I'm gonna set this back to about like 7 yards is like the furthest shot that I can take here. I'm gonna drop the 1-inch target inside the actual laser target, turn that thing on. Now I'm just gonna put the target over there and walk over here. Now let's see how close we are. Looks like it might be a tiny bit low and right, so I will adjust that here, but I'm really gonna have to take that into account when I'm out on the range. Because it was a little bit low, I think I'm actually gonna leave that alone, but I will crank it a little bit to the left. When you're doing this, you do have to keep in mind the height of the optic over the actual bore. Let's give that a try. All right, I think that's okay for now. Let's head out to the range and see how this thing shoots. All right guys, finally back on the home range. It's been a while since I've been up here. Got all the targets set up again, got some new paint on there. Probably need some new 2x4s eventually, but once I start filming some more this week, I'll probably replace all of that stuff. Now this gun has obviously never been fired so far. I did a lot of dry fire last night, shooting with the laser all over the place, and now we're gonna see how it shoots. I'm gonna guess that the RMR is pretty much on, but I guess we'll see back here from about 15 yards. Should turn the dot up. If you press and hold on an RMR like this, it'll turn into auto adjust brightness. Let's try this again. Man, I miss shooting at steel like this. Looks like it's on for the most part. I'm gonna run one more mag and then I'll probably end up shooting at paper just to get this thing zeroed from an actual distance. And we should be good after that. All right, paper time now. I'm back here at about 15 yards. Unfortunately, I don't have my rangefinder today. Typically, I like zeroing an RMR between like 15 and 25, depending on the situation. Since this is going to be an EDC gun, I'm okay with having it zeroed up a little bit closer. So I'm gonna shoot it here, but eventually in the future, I'll come back and find a legit distance and then sit down and maybe even shoot it from like a bench style position. Let's see where we're at with this thing. Now I gotta find one of my casings to adjust this, but the grass is too damn high up here. Let's see what this looks like. Why don't I just put the shell casing back into my pocket? Because that would make sense. Let's go take a look at that. So we started with a flyer over here. That was definitely my fault. And then a little bit low, brought it up a tiny bit, a little bit more, a little bit to the right. And then the last few were right in around this area. I'm cool with that for now, and like I said, I will come back and re-zero this thing a little bit further in the future. Let's try to work some sticky, sweaty draws from this new holster. New holster, new gun, new light. I think it'll be all right though. It's been a minute. It feels so similar to my Glock 17, just a tiny bit smaller in every way, so Kind of feels pretty natural, actually. It is warm out here though. Now you guys know we got to try a couple distance shots. Yeah, I'd say this thing is all right. We definitely got to work out that freshly painted TA Targets dueling tree. And now one last thing that I always talked about in videos in the past, but I've never actually shown this, is when you get a new gun that you're considering for an everyday carry pistol, you should absolutely always shoot at least one mag of whichever ammo that you choose to carry. I'm gonna be testing a few different ammos going forward, but as of right now, I have some 124 grain Spear Gold Dots. Now let's see how these things feel. Ugh, bugs everywhere. Feels pretty good. All right guys, well that's pretty much all that I have for this new Glock 19 build. Hopefully you enjoyed this, hopefully you learned something. In the end, everyone is going to be setting up their guns differently. However, it kind of helps to see what other people do, and for me, this is definitely one that I'm gonna be carrying for a little while now. This will be my new go-to training gun. That way I can have it in a drop leg holster. I can always have it in appendix as well, like I would be carrying normally. And it fits into a lot of different roles with that light on there. If I'm traveling around and I'm allowed to have a firearm in my van with me, I don't have to swap one off and on every night. This is a good bedside gun. When you put together something like this, it becomes super versatile, and that's what I love about this platform, and I think I'm really gonna enjoy shooting this thing even more in the future. So if you got any questions, let me know in the comments down below. I'll try to answer as many of them as possible. Big thank you to everyone who supports the channel over on Patreon. Huge thank you to Panda Tactical for sponsoring the ammo for videos like this. And now that I'm back on the range, we got a ton more Sunday gun days coming, so I hope you guys are stoked. If you're new to the channel, consider clicking subscribe. I make new videos every week, and that's gonna be all for today. So as always, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next one.